What's up, TIW Mafia? See that? We did an intro this week. It's not echoing this week. We have with us our first Mulligan. Not the first repeat guest, but the first 2 weeks in a row. Thank you, Mike, for coming back.
No worries.
Coach Mike Hollow. We were just in a conversation, and so we're going to start early again, but I wanted to give... We did it last week, and there was no intro. We kind of started hot. But we were talking about what you would do if you were going to run a school now and how you would do it. By the way WWE is looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, I think, WWE's pretty, made it real clear from a business standpoint today, and that they're hiring talent outside of the independents. And if I was to own a school or run a school, it's basically trying to take a guy or a girl that wants to learn the business and put them in a position with where they truly understand the fundamentals and all the little nuances, and that they're coachable. So if that opportunity ever arose with where they had a chance to be looked at, it's not a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, JP.
No, go ahead.
It's what I see in a lot of the new guys coming up. It's like you don't have the jobber anymore. You're coming up and you're being a star. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of the WWE doing is they're going to take this top guy from the Indies and put him in dark matches for a couple of years, where people know him as character X, and they're going to put him in 2 years so they forget about him and bring out his character Y. Mm-hmm. And basically remold him.
Yeah. I mean, WWE, they'll tell you is that, they have a certain style that they want their workers to work.
Yeah.
And, you've got to be able to figure that out with what they're looking for. So whether it's from a character standpoint or from a work rate standpoint, is being able to change with what you've been taught, and hopefully there are good habits that will allow you to flourish that environment with where,
right.
It's not a cup of coffee and you're done, right? And that there's something there for them to be able to work with.
And they usually, when they bring those guys up, you look at some of the ones that they've done it with, Mark Henry, Kurt Angle, and the longevity that's been there. There's been a couple that didn't last that long, mm-hmm. but for the most part, they have a good eye for what's going to...
Yeah.
Even Brock Lesnar was someone that Paul Heyman pulled out of a basketball audience somewhere, I think it was. But he was NCAA.
Yeah.
So.
And then what they're doing with, I forget his name now, the other Olympic wrestler, just won all the golds and won the NCAAs.
The kid that they're getting ready to give him a big push. They're already putting his name on TV. So
he was at WrestleMania. Even if you're not wrestling, but if you're there and your name's mentioned, it's a big spot.
And one of the things that was exciting about for a guy like that, or you talk about Kurt Angle or you think of Brock Lesnar, it's being able to transition from that collegiate style to the entertainment style of WWE, and being able to transcend outside the ring and being able to have that creative flair with where people want that you can garner attention.
Yeah. I bet you they already have his merch out there and everything.
Pretty close if they don't, I'm sure.
JBL said he doesn't want his merch out there because it's taken away from his heel character or something. But I don't get that, but all right, it's money out of your pocket.
That's an old school, the heel doesn't sell the merch because you're not supposed to like the heel. You're not supposed to want to buy the heel's merch.
But since the Attitude Era, though, the heel face line has been blurred.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think it's, Stone Cold was a in-betweener, and he pulled it off pretty well, but no one else has pulled it off quite the way Stone Cold did.
No.
Yeah.
In a cool, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You're an expert on pro wrestling. I'm an expert on being a pro wrestling fan. But George Carroll, who, now he's doing some really cool stuff, mm-hmm. and we won't even mention what he's doing, but he once said a cool heel is a babyface.
Yeah.
The cool heel is the guy that wants to kick the boss's ass.
He's going after authority.
Right?
But then is that really the heel?
Think about in everyday life with where someone would want to get retribution on the heel, on the boss, right? And, Vince doing as well as he did from his character than Austin and putting that together, it's chemistry and money.
Yeah. The Vince McMahon peeing his pants on national television.
Crazy.
But it's... I think not having how are you going to have a Marvel movie? You think about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is probably the biggest movie franchise out there right now.
Yeah.
What would it be without a bad guy?
Flat.
What would it be without the good guys?
Mm-hmm. There always has to be good versus evil to create interest.
Right.
Oh, that's the nature of the world.
It's the nature of the world, right? So the same thing, really, if done properly in professional wrestling, that's with what garners interest.
That's what and that's like I miss the jobbers. Mm-hmm. I miss seeing guys like you when you did your tour. Yeah. Or, like I used to love when I saw Dwayne Gill before he was Gilbert, seeing Dwayne Gill come out because I knew I was going to see a great match.
Yeah.
Or even like people like Funaki who are phenomenal wrestlers. Phenomenal. But they filled that role because they were kind of silly. They had their spotlight, but where they were kind of silly, they played that silliness, but you could see them work like amazing stuff.
Guys like that, Gilbert, Funaki, great carpenters, great mechanics with where they can be given something and taking the ball and just run with it.
Yeah, and they could make you question, even though you went into the match knowing the outcome, they could make you question it by the end of it, Mario Mancini, there was a couple of great ones,
But Gilbert, getting back to Gilbert real quick, he had you focused when he went through with the sparklers and he was, burning. He had you focused on him.
But before that, it was he was Dwayne Gill, and he came out very, very vanilla.
It was different, right? So you go from one extreme to something with where you see something like that and say, "What is up with this guy?"
Yep.
Do you feel that's? I mean, I know it's just the evolution of the world and things change, but do you think wrestling could be better today if it still had some of that? I mean, it still has some good versus evil. It still has, but it doesn't have the jobber at all, unless, everybody's a superstar.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes it hard today, it's just, it's fast, right? And people that are watching it either from an live audience standpoint or from a TV standpoint, if you're not doing something that's creatively outside the box, people lose interest, and they go to their phones, and their attention span is so limited. So it's really it's changed how things are looked at and how things are done.
Okay.
But I'll say this: from a pay-per-view to a house show, there's a different mentality and a different approach from a work standpoint. So you can see a hell of a match on a house show. With where in television you'll see a 4-minute snippet of a small piece of what's really trying to be told because it's TV versus a live audience.
The house shows are where they get to be silly. They get to, I was at a house show and I saw Triple H moon the crowd.
Yeah,
but the house shows also don't have the TV time constraints either.
Yeah, correct.
Constraints. That's the word.
Yes.
Constraints isn't a word. It's sort of a mix of a constraint and a breakfast.
There you go.
It's a JPism.
JPism.
So, I don't know. I'm an old school. Like, I enjoy the old school better than what I enjoy. And that's not to say nothing, because these guys are athletic. Yeah. These guys are entertained. Like, I love RK Bro. Yeah. Like, I think those two together. Yeah. And when that first happened, I said, "Oh, there's no way this is going to work."
It's great seeing Randy Orton laugh.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. He's learning how to be somebody else.
Yeah. So you think about that little persona change, right? With what that creates from a mileage standpoint, from a character standpoint, and then little nuances and being able to take that and put that out there. And, the audience now being on the edge of the seat and saying, geez, where is this really going to go? And how is this going to pan out with where you could take that character and do so much with it because his level of understanding in terms of how to project that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? I mean, think about that. That is with where he is really in tune of, not with how much he's doing in the ring per se, but with what he's putting out over the ropes to people to kind of pick up on, those little tidbits, whether it's his eyes, his mannerisms, his movements, his hands. It's those type of things that really say, geez, what is it about him that's uniquely different?
And the thing I like about that with him is he's almost playing second fiddle, and he's never had that other than when he was with Triple H and all that. But now that he's by himself and he's playing second fiddle to a more charismatic character, and he's learning how to do that, it's great to see that.
And it's, giving a hell of a rub to Riddle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, think about
Not that he needed it to begin with, but like for someone like Orton to be with you and to, because he didn't. Orton isn't known for putting up with a lot.
No, it's great because you see where Orton is here, grabbed him, and it switched. Now Orton pushed him along.
Yeah,
and the interesting thing, if you look at it from a business standpoint now, you use WWE, then you use AEW. You say to yourself, what guys in AEW can do with what Orton's doing with a guy like Riddle? There's no comparison there, and they're creating another mega star here in WWE.
It's like they have that the comparison between them that I can see is like that the brother situation, but the younger one is like 15 and the older one's like 25.
Yeah,
and he's like can't put up with it, but he does, and it works.
Yeah, that's watching just what they're doing with Cody.
Yeah,
Cody, did you happen to catch what happened he had a dark match with Kevin Owens after Raw?
No, I didn't see that.
So The Rock's mother was there, and The Rock's mother was at WrestleMania in the audience. Yeah. And they took him out. The two of them were fighting outside, and they did the fans gonna hold Owens' arms.
Yeah.
He had The Rock's mother come up and hold the arms, and you could see him kind of giving her like come over here, do this for me, over there.
Really?
Like you could tell it really wasn't in there.
Yeah.
And she held him, he chopped him, and then Cody was like, no, come back, and like gave her a big hug. It was kind of a cool little moment. But you could tell like he saw her in the audience, he knew who she was.
Yeah.
Gave her that spot.
And because they didn't make a big deal about it. They didn't mention her at all in the audience.
Now you're going to see Cody Rhodes on Young Rock.
Yeah.
You never know. So the beauty of it is that you never know where seeds are planted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty.
Oh,
right? This looked like this was...
That's the art.
So this reminded me of something that I watched Tommaso and Alex Arion do. NECW, I don't know if you were familiar with their Iron 8. It was sort of like a takeoff of the Super 8.
Yeah.
And they had in Holly race for it.
Yeah.
And Holly was ringside next to Matt West, who was the booker and the promoter.
Yeah.
And Alex was kind of like trying to draw Harley into the whole match. Like every time he'd go around would say something like, come on, go guy, whatever. And just trying to draw him in. And I think it was Tommaso that he had, like outside the ring, he was lining him up with a chair, and all of a sudden Harley stood up, picked his chair up, and you could see Matt West next to him, like crapping his pants, because it wasn't in there. It was just Alex had been drawing him in the whole time.
That's where you pull the real emotion, though.
Yeah.
And
you
got a great piece.
But those guys right after that got a great opportunity, and they got to go out with Harley and train for a while, and that was...
I remember when Tommaso was at Chaotic, and then that opportunity came for him to go out there. And that piece is so important from the development standpoint. And I've always said, our approach at CTC is that we wanted students to leave us. And you say, what do you mean you wanted students to leave us? Jamie and I, we wanted our students to leave, right? And not in a bad sense, but
give a little pat in the ass on the way out the door.
The one thing that we could do there, and I would say probably better than most, is that we could put together for them a great foundation, so that when they had an opportunity to travel the world and wrestle in different places, they would be able to know their way in and out of the ring, right? Because as I was talking about last week, we're not the finished schools. We weren't the Terry Taylors or the the Robbie Brooksides or the Matt Blooms or so forth and so on, but our piece was the foundation, which really needed to be solid, and that allowed them to elevate their careers.
And it's you look at the guys who did that. Look at the Biff Busick's, Only Lorcans, the Anthony Greens, who put himself. Anthony Green, I think, was a part of every wrestling school in this area at one point or another.
That's what I did with Josh. I mean, I'll share with you. I think I'm not sure if I said to you last week, but Josh, Briggs had spent 2 years with me, training him through Hollow Stables, and then I said, hey, it's time for you to go to. I took him to Fury's and say, hey, here's Brian, and spend some time with him at that school, and here's something else. Hear another voice, right, wrong, or indifferent, or whatever it may be, and use those takeaways to hone your craft.
Well, it's after grade school, you get a high school teacher or a college professor. You don't lose that teacher or that professor. Like, you can always go back to that teacher. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's very he might have moved on from Hollow Stables and went on to Brian, But he didn't lose you. Like, he
No.
can always go to you and be like, hey,
Yeah.
Help me work on this.
Yeah.
and I know he's someone that you're super proud of.
Yeah.
Like, that's,
It's like the conversation I had with my daughter earlier this morning. She's like, "You've told me something so many times over the years, and I listened, but I didn't really get it until I heard the same thing from somebody else."
right.
Yeah.
And it just hits differently.
Yeah.
What I used to tell people around here was to start at Bo's, to start a Bell Time Club. And Bo knows this. I've said this to Bo. Don't finish at the Bell Time Club.
No.
Go from there, go to Chaotic, but make sure it's what you want to do.
And the other aspect of that from a business standpoint, in being confident as a trainer, right? And I understand schools have to pay their bills, but have your students go out and see different things that are going on with different facilities here throughout New England. There might be some creative takeaways or in-ring takeaways that ultimately they're going to push your career to a different level.
Now, would you do seminars?
Yeah.
Is that something you'd...
Yeah, I mean, I've done them down in Jersey. I've done them in Maryland. I love doing stuff like that. I think it's exciting, and I wish there was more of it. I mean, I haven't really put myself out there a lot, and, coming up to all of the COVID stuff, I'm not really sure with where schools are at now, but I think that would be exciting. I'm always curious to see what other students are doing throughout the country, and with what other trainers are doing. I think that's important, and just being able to give them, some professional insight as well, and and more importantly, as they're going down this journey of trying to become successful, and with whatever it may be, is that are they going about it the right way, right? Because there's all different flavors of ice cream, but there's everybody needs good direction.
It's like you mentioned the business standpoint a few minutes ago. You got to look at training as a business ladder as well.
Right.
You can't get to the second round without hitting the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so important. And I've always said to the students that I've come across is have that briefcase mentality where you know how to do your business inside the ring, but also the outside of it. Saying to yourself, what is your plan during the course of the year, first quarter through the fourth quarter, with where there are things that you can cross off the list from a development standpoint that you're flourishing in, or are you saying to yourself, geez, why aren't I getting any better? And having those true reflections and looking in the mirror and say, geez, maybe there's some things that I need to do to make things better for myself.
And it's like sports in general, like coaching my kids playing Little League going up. A lot of kids will look for you to make me better instead of it being me to make me better.
I mean, I've had people blame me because they weren't successful. That's okay. That's okay, and that's hey,
I'm sorry you didn't have it in you. Because clearly, and this is where I've met you twice now.
Yeah.
One thing I know is that you know how to produce a successful professional wrestler, because I've seen it, whether the person's made it to the WWE or they've been at the top of the Elks.
Yeah.
That person's been successful because they've done what they want to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no problem with either. I think everybody should want to be in the top, and everyone should want to be on TV, but that's not for everybody.
And my whole thing is, right, wrong, or different is being honest with talent. I mean, there's not enough with where you go to an independent show, there's 7 or 8 matches, and everyone's ass slapping in the back saying, that was 5-star. But there's always takeaways, and that was one of the things that we were proud of at CTC is we would have our shows and chaotic shows, but on Tuesday nights we would have tape review, right? And same thing that they do up there is with where there's great things that we see, and then there are takeaways with where hey, we need to clean this up, and it's not to hit someone over the head, but it's the same thing the Patriots do after a game on a Monday.
Some of my most enjoyable wrestling matches have been sitting behind Brian Fury watching his students as they wrestle, because he doesn't wait for the tape review. He's screaming at them, while they're in the ring wrestling, and it's, I get it because he's passionate. He wants to see these kids be the best, and let's face it, he's produced some of the best.
I mean, let's
along
be
with
honest.
you.
Our name,
I think that
our name is on someone's forehead.
Yeah,
and they're a reflection, in ring and out of ring, in regards to how they carry themselves.
Yeah, that's. And now, the people you've trained, just so we can remind some people, Ivar, Biff was after you, right? Only
No, Biff was there.
Okay.
Yeah, Biff, Ivar, Tommaso, Kofi, Brian Black, Malonis.
Kofi was
Chad.
such a cool story.
Yeah, you know the one thing is, I'll share this story with you about Kofi. This tells you a lot about a guy in terms of who he is as a person. He had reached out to me and says, "Hey, they're doing a documentary on me, WWE 24/7," and he says, "I want you to be in it."
Huh.
I said, "Yeah, really?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "You were the one from the get-go that laid that foundation for me, that allows me to with what I'm doing today, and I just want that to be out there."
That was right before he won the title, too,
Yeah,
right?
and he didn't have to do that.
No, that's cool. And that's Kofi's. I've met him a couple of times because I only had the chance a couple of times before he made it. He hit on so quick. I didn't know he wasn't Jamaican.
No.
Like, he showed up at the show. I was ring crew. I was there hours early, and he'd show up shaking hands.
Right.
Man, Kofi Kingston, man.
Yeah.
You know.
His mother let that cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
And to play off that, another scenario. So I had reached out to him, and I'd reached out to Tommaso for the students at Next Gen, with where they both called in and did Zoom calls.
That's awesome.
And talked to the students for 45 minutes to an hour, just giving them their professional insight. Think about that, how busy they are, and just being able to get that information from right out of the horse's mouth of all the trials and tribulations that they faced, all the hardships, all the things that they had to work through, all the things that worked for them. And to be able to hear that, so besides me, but coming from guys that are on TV every week, I mean, that was phenomenal.
That's so. No, not many other schools in the world get that opportunity.
But the big thing out of that whole thing is that I look for is that they didn't forget where they came from.
No.
Exactly. Like, again, going back, you can't get to the second round unless you get on the first, and that holds true. You don't just make the ladder and stay there. Those rungs can come back down.
I mean, Rock has even said, there's been many people in my career that have helped me along the way. I just didn't become Rock because I became Rock.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people that coached him along the way that allowed him to flourish, whether it was an acting coach or a producer at WWE, or whether it's Vince or whoever it was that allowed him to flourish.
But I just love that Kofi, because that Kofi story, and that's the exception to the rule, guys. Like, and Kofi worked hard.
Yeah.
For the year and a half, or so he was on the Independence. He worked hard. He worked his ass off. And
you find that diamond.
Yeah. It was a good right place, right time. I don't want to discourage anyone, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes there's Handsome Johnny that was ready 100 years ago.
There's another fascinating, talent, right? It was where he heard no more than anybody, right? No,
Never gave
right?
up.
Never ever gave up. Perseverance through the to the hill, and
I think Kofi getting signed drove him a little too, because that was when him and Brian Malonis, I'm going to reveal the fourth wall, they started doing the P90X together right around that time, and I think that was this kid did it, and we just had a hand in this, helping this kid out,
absolutely. Yep.
So, and that's and then injuries that would have stopped someone else. Three times now, would have stopped other person's career having a once.
Yeah.
And he got better after each time.
Exactly.
And the thing with him is, one, I beat him in the hot dog eating contest. I don't care what he says.
I'll have to write him and ask him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, do it.
I will.
There was it was another NECW thing for Sheldon at the Hot Dog Safari. And Sheldon said to me, because I'm a big guy, you think you can win this? I'm going to enter you in with some of the wrestlers if you think you can win. I said, I know I can win this. They didn't put any water out. I'm gagging. But I'm ahead solidly, beating everybody. I downed more hot dogs than anyone. Take that as a clip. And
you've had more wiener down your mouth.
I'm gagging. And George Carroll's, again, on the camera behind us recording it as I'm gagging, because there's no water, and all I hear is him go, kick him. And all I felt is the kick in the stomach, and I threw up everywhere. And then get to the ring, and Paul Richards is in the ring saying, oh, look, JP's back. What's JP stand for? And the ongoing joke at that time was I always said just perfect. And he went, funny, I heard it stood for just puked. and the whole crowd chanted. It was, but yeah, but it was Handsome Johnny that wound up winning after I threw up.
Okay, so I'll have to write him and say, hey, you beat JP in the...
Yeah, he'll laugh. But he was always the first person at every show.
Yes.
There was never, and I said this about Joe, I said, I've never met another wrestler who's early, except for you, the past 2 weeks, you beat us here both times.
Yeah.
But
one time we walked 3 blocks.
Yeah.
I know, exactly.
But
we show up in Big Macs.
Handsome Johnny Ivar was the first person there.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. You see a lot of people with desire, but they don't have the drive. You need to put those two together to get there.
Well, I think the other fascinating thing is that, that I've seen over the years is that, both guys and girls can't really fathom how much work that really goes into doing what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of the little things. I mean, I could go on, and it's information overload, and trying to process all of that and put it together from a physicality, from a mental standpoint. It's overwhelming, and it takes time.
Right. It's not. You don't start training 1 week and get in the ring the next.
Yeah.
It's
you're
months.
good 6 months before you even start.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah.
And it's different for. I'd say it's different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Some guys 6 months, and there might be an exception to the rule. There are some people that are a year, some people a year and a half. It's hard.
Was there somebody that surprised you? Like, was there somebody on day one you were like, man, this kid's not gonna...
Arch.
Arch kid.
Yeah. I remember, as I was sharing the story with you last week, I mean, he had 2 left feet, 2 left arms, couldn't get out of his way if he tried. But I'll tell you, 4 days a week at Walters, and he just persevered, and we put him through. Arch.
I want to give someone that was in your class at Walters, actually, I want to give a shout out.
Sure.
Mike Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Just had, I think it was I don't know if it was his hip or his knee surgery done, so just wish him well. I know he tunes in, so. Yeah. And I know he'll be listening to this one.
Yeah, I remember Mike. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. We grew up with, me and Joe both grew up in Southie with Mike.
Yeah, tell him I said hello.
Many moons ago.
I just wish I knew that there were schools around back then.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's funny because we grew up with him and Pat Dillon, who both went to schools.
And I had no idea.
Well, the only way how I found about Walters was through Paul Richards.
Okay, Paul's a great guy.
I can't put the story together because it's been so long ago, but he was the one that picked me up and took me to Walters. And
so he would have been touring with WWF at the time, probably.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was before that because he was doing the IWF shows for Walter.
Okay.
Back in the early '94, '93. But he was the one that took me there for the first time, and the rest was history.
That's a guy with a story.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
But that's now you, and the other thing we touched on this last week, but we got to again, unfortunately, Mulligan. You actually, before you trained, you had a job in pro wrestling, working for a small wrestling company, right?
Well, I don't know if I had a job for a small wrestling company. I had a job working for a big wrestling company. It was interesting. I come out of school and I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I had become friends with Freddie Spada, and he had said that they were looking for someone to work part-time over the summer, and next thing you know, it's 2 years later, and I'm traveling all around the country, and setting up rings in all different places, and waking up in the morning not knowing where I am, and but a hell of an education prior, that allowing me to see different things and helping me to do with what I was able to when I got into it from the other standpoint.
Now, because you mentioned Fred, I got to ask.
Yeah, Freddie.
Did you ever work for his brother?
What's that?
Did you ever wrestle for his brother?
Yes.
You had any good stories out of there?
No.
Any bad stories out of there?
Well, what I will say is, Freddie was a classic true pro, right?
I've heard that.
He was, just from a referee standpoint, and for me as a friend, we still go back and forth today. He's down in Florida or in Tampa. The understanding that he had two very intelligent friends that were very close, and so he was able to take a lot from them. But a hell of a promoter, hell of with finishes, just a real good understanding, and I was grateful that I was able to become friends with him and use him as being able to pull as much
Yeah.
information as I could.
I've always heard great things. I've never met Fred,
Yeah.
but I've always
Wonderful.
heard great things.
Wonderful person.
And that's why he got to where he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. We went to see Hacksaw Jim Duggan do a stand-up thing,
Oh yeah.
and I didn't know Kenny Casanova at the time, but I recognized Kenny, and Kenny was there and sort of in the audience, and I could tell he was sort of giving the time signals. So I said, I help out Sheldon at the shows. I do ring crew and stuff. And he says, first thing he says is, "Do you know Sparta?"
Which one?
He was asking about Mike. And I said, no.
Yeah.
He said, that's too bad. But then he started using me and Joe to kind of control where in the crowd, because there was some people that may have had a few too many on the other side that were trying to get more
on the other side of the
questions
bar.
asked.
They said, "Let's go over here."
So he was using us on the opposite end to
Throwing
kind of get
questions
more
at
questions.
Hacksaw.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some fun with that.
No. Yeah, and I'd worked for Mike a lot.
Yeah.
But Freddie, hands down, probably.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good to hear, because you always hear I'm going to say this, and I don't know either one of them, but I'm always going to, you know the stories you hear about Mike.
Yeah.
And you always hear the Mike Spada stories. You don't hear the Freddie Spada stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
Tonight's the first
But
time I heard about Freddie Spada.
The Mike Spada stories
Yeah.
are usually pretty funny.
Yeah, they're interesting, and you would never know that they're brothers. But Freddie was in a class by himself.
That's
Yeah.
Now, what was his role? Because he was like almost an agent with the WWF or something, wasn't he?
No, I mean he was doing their New England loop, doing their house shows, and then
Okay.
he played a big part. He worked closely with Bruce Pritchard when they were doing the dojo shows.
Okay.
So he and he was great for us local talent, where he was trying to get us as much work and exposure as possible. Tied in with Kowalski's at the time, so he did a lot for us local guys, and trying to get us into that mainstream look. And so again, very appreciative of that over the years, especially early on, where we were all trying to get on the radar.
Yes.
So
and that was a good way of doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, couldn't beat it.
No, and you never knew who was going to show up at those shows.
No.
No.
Which there was some pretty good lineups for those.
Yeah.
Those independent shows.
And that was the thing back then, is that could happen. Now that would never happen.
Well, now you got someone walks out a door, someone's following them wherever they go.
Right.
Yeah.
And they get this, like I say, most of these shows, you get half of them are fans and half of them are anti-fans.
Right.
They're going to want to just take these pictures. Oh, you boffed this move, and next thing you know, it's all over.
And that's never been out. We've
No.
always been. I love pro wrestling. Whether I like what's on TV now, which I'm not crazy about it. I love independent wrestling right now. I love something about it. You know what I mean? It's drawn me.
I love
in.
the good of it.
47 years old, and I still like it.
I love the good of it, and I love the bad of it.
Yeah. It's how you look at it, right? I mean, there are takeaways on both sides of the aisle. There are guys and girls that are trying to cut their teeth. Some of them are going to have an opportunity to flourish. Others are going to find their ways out of the business, but might be fulfilling a lifelong dream. But giving entertainment for fans like us, that's the piece.
Yeah.
Did you see? So, Never Say Never is happening sooner. Almost like what you thought, but not quite. Not quite. You weren't right. And the Undertaker is going to start doing a podcast on the Peacock.
All right.
So that's what Never Say Never comes from.
Okay.
You never know.
That's it. And
So he's out of the ring, but he's still in the business.
How many people have retired from pro wrestling successfully? Only the ones who stopped getting booked.
Yeah.
It's hard. I've
hard.
watched people. I've watched guys that I'm good friends with try, and then the phone rings and it's, I'll be there. Because but on the independent level, I think it's more the camaraderie than anything. It's obviously it's not the paydays. It's
It's the hot dogs.
Like Kyle White, Kyle Storm, and Evan Six are going to be tagging up a week from Sunday for UFO at 177 West Street.
Oh, okay.
And those two have both been out of the ring. I don't know if I know you probably know Kyle. I don't know if you know Evan.
I know both of them,
They've both been out of the ring for
a long time.
Evan's been out of the ring for 15 years?
pretty close other than like one or two runs here and there, because he can't be around. He couldn't promote wrestling without being a part of it, Kyle. That was his problem.
Yeah.
So you never know who might show up in a wrestling ring.
Right. And It's Mike Hollow maybe.
Hey, I'm not saying anything. All I'm going to say is this: you never know.
Never say never.
That's you. So that answers that. Do you get the itch?
Oh, I mean, I think it's something that's a part of us that will never go away. With where, but my passion came from the other side with where creating opportunities. But I'd be lying to you if I told you otherwise. I mean, if something was right and it made sense and it could work and to have fun with it, why not?
What I watched with, I don't know if you know this kid, Alec Price.
Yes.
So Alec's a great talent.
Mm-hmm.
What I watched with him when he was starting to do shows was he was trained by Bo, but Bo was using Benny Jones.
Oh yeah, another great guy.
And and Benny's
a good egg.
I think Benny and those two were married for like a year.
Yeah.
Because Benny wanted to make sure he controlled the matches.
Yeah.
And look at where Alec is now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing every independent show he wants to do. He's traveling. I think he's been down to Texas already. He's been all over the place. So, and he's been down to Florida and had a little talk and conversation.
Yeah. So as long as he's staying on the straight path and he's developing good habits. So when that opportunity is to come again, it's not with where I'm seeing the stuff that I don't want to see from a work standpoint.
The thing with that, you have a conversation with Alex, and Alec, and you think that this kid's he's a young kid. He talks like a young kid, and then you don't know what to expect, and then he gets in the ring and he captures you.
Mm-hmm. That's the type of person who not only does he know how to wrestle, he knows how to work.
Yeah.
And you need both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was one. He came through Pat because he had some Salty ties, and his mother grew up in Salty, and he said he wanted to wrestle. His mother called Pat up, and Pat got him hooked up with Bo, and I'd say he's Bo's best student that's come out of that school.
Oh, I'm sure.
And Bo's had a few good ones.
Yep.
But again, most of them graduated to like Christian, and those guys all graduated to Chaotic, and then.
No, Bo's done a nice job with his students down there. And Bo has a Kowalski trace with where he wants to do it right. So that's the piece that's important.
I've sat in on some of Bo's training sessions, and he's again honest with the kids.
You have to be.
And he'll sit there and ask me what I thought, because knowing me, I'm watching as a fan, and I'd say you got to take them down the street. We got to go into a bar and get into a real fight and show them how to throw a real punch.
Yes.
Because
to your point there, which is such an important point, you only have one chance. Think about this. You only have one chance to make an impression.
Yeah.
Where someone's going to stay with you for the duration, or they're going to get up and they're going to get a soda or a hot dog.
Right. Yeah. And for the record, I do not recommend any wrestling students going to a bar and getting into fist fights. No. But I do recommend learning how to throw.
Well, you did that down in Texas.
Yeah, we did.
With Brian Knobs.
Knobs may or may not have
knocked
thrown
the big
a few
guy
elbows
to the floor.
at me.
He knocked the big guy to the floor.
He didn't knock me to the floor. He could have. I don't doubt it, because I didn't. It was after an event. We did security for Booker T.
Yeah.
And this was after his event, and saying goodbye. I don't know what I did, but Knobs was saying goodbye to everyone, and instead of shaking my hand, just started throwing elbows at me. And they
came at him like
they were coming. They were hard.
And everyone else was kind of backed away and didn't happen.
Yeah, including my best friend. But I didn't know.
That's what best friend's supposed to do.
I didn't know what to do in the situation.
It's freaking Brian Knobs,
I don't know how to. He probably thought I was a wrestler. I'm not, so I don't know. I just kind of took it.
He's shooting on him.
Yeah. Like I kind of just took it and laughed it off.
And I'll say maybe.
And we got a story to tell 13 years later. Still,
Knobs may have or may not have indulged a bit. In a few drinks, but it was fun.
That was a whole fun weekend.
Now, Bobby D's asked me a question. I think we already covered this before. He's asking, do you think you would make a good ref? To your knowledge.
I have reffed, and I've enjoyed reffing. Do I think do you
think you'd make a good ref in the business today if you were on, like say, top notch? I know you are, but you know what I'm saying. Would you be comfortable reffing a match on WWE TV the way it is now?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we don't expose the fourth wall here too much, but the ref has a pretty important job out there.
Yeah. Huge.
And
vital, more so than people understand.
I've been lucky that I've gotten to travel with, like, Rich Bass and
Yeah.
a couple guys like that are, top notch. And
Referees are a godsend if they're good.
Good
Even
director
better.
in the ring.
They are.
You
I
know.
mean, they are the third wheel. From the production truck to the boys, to if someone's hurt.
yeah, and you look at who's, I mean, I know Matt Bennett's WWE now.
Yeah.
And he was always a ref, but who was the one that was the blowout boy?
Oh, Dan.
Yeah.
Danny. Yeah, great. He's
they-
a great little talent.
Yes.
Great little wrestler.
Yeah. They took him, he was a wrestler, and went down there and they said, "You're not a wrestler, you're a referee."
Yeah.
And he's one of the best refs they got
Yeah.
down there, and that's,
Because
he gets
everybody
that
has
role.
all the pieces got to fit to make the
and they did that with a few different people at that time.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's, and that's key. They understand that role. They know how to.
They realize that they're not bigger than the match. They
Right.
understand where they need to be and what their job is.
Yeah,
and they
and
do
that's
that well.
there's, the ref.
It goes to the refs and the ring announcers.
A ref shouldn't sell a move bigger than the wrestler.
Right.
and like just looking at injuries, say
That's
you can tell when the wrestler's really injured because the ref's there for a little bit more time.
yeah.
If the ref comes up, touches it, and calls for the stretcher, he's not hurt.
Right.
Sorry to break the fourth wall on that again.
Right, but that's known, and the signs for that are known, and
Yeah.
he actually saw Ryback throw his own up at one point.
Yeah.
I saw that and I went, "Oh man." Yeah. So that's the thing is and the ref's role is a lot more than that. The ref's role goes through the whole match, and it's not just counting.
We
to
really
three.
try to make. I try to really make a
It's
big
one
deal of that.
part of it's being invisible.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you see the ref, they're not doing it right. It shouldn't be about the ref.
No. Out of the way.
It's like a stage play.
Yeah.
Everyone
But-
needs to know where they're going to be at what time.
Yeah.
Because there may be a prop coming through.
God, I couldn't. I mean, I would. There was plenty of times where I was throwing stuff at the referee to tell, feeding stuff to
Yeah.
him to give to my opponent with where
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
him to be, so forth and so on. All of that stuff.
Was that the footwork?
Yeah. Yeah.
For those that don't know, like, whenever I heard someone talk about one of Mike Hollow's students, it's like, yeah, that's one of Mike's. Look at the footwork.
Yeah.
And that's one of the few phrases that I never figured out in pro wrestling was what they meant by the footwork. And I think you explained it last week.
Yeah,
was-
On the Mulligan show.
Mulligan show, yeah, it's such a vital piece, right? So whether it's pro wrestling, whether it's a quarterback in the pocket, not having happy feet, second baseman knowing how to transition to a double play, whatever it may be, it's those little things that really stick out that allow you to be noticed for the right reasons.
How you would place your feet when you're doing
Yeah.
this move
Yeah,
as opposed to
and
that.
Absolutely.
taking less steps and
Less steps, not wasting steps. Less is more.
yeah.
It's such a vital piece. An old timer said to me one time, "I can tell if a guy can work just by watching his feet." Now think about that. Just by watching his feet, it says a lot.
That's
So that piece always stuck with me over the years, with where there was something to that. And when I watch wrestling today, I'm looking for clean movements, right, and how they transition from one situation or scenario to another. How they position themselves. How do they utilize the ring? Where are they in the ring? How do they get from different points with less? And that's the art of it.
Now, when you have a student, someone comes into Hollows now,
Mm-hmm.
do they have to get permission from you before they go on a show?
Yes.
Do you allow them to go and set up shows, or
Oh yeah.
you know what I
that's
mean,
fine.
before they're ready?
Absolutely. I think paying dues and setting up the ring and setting up chairs is such a vital piece,
That's-
and being supportive and going to see what goes on. But
I loved
Building
my
the
time
foundation.
I
Building a
loved
fo-
my time setting the ring up.
yeah,
It was great.
it's. I think again, I don't want to pick on schools or the trainers. That I think that you just create a disservice with where you're putting someone out there that's not there yet, and now they get a couple of matches
Right.
under their belt, and they say, "Geez, I'm ready." And then to play off of that, what I've seen more so than often over the years is that now that they're starting to get work, now they stop training.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, why? Now think
Right.
about that, right? All of a sudden, you get your feet wet, you're learning your craft, and now you're getting matches,
So-
and they don't want to go to school.
I don't know the Red Sox schedule this week. I know they play this week,
Yeah, they play. Yeah,
but I know what they do on their days off.
yeah,
Yeah.
They practice.
exactly.
and
And
those guys are professionals making millions of dollars, and they practice.
So I find it fascinating. So for all the schools that I've taught at and practices that I've held, I only see greenhorns. I hardly would ever see a guy that's actively working on the independents today show up to a training class. Now, no, obviously they're not getting paid large sums of money like they are if they were part of the performance center. But those guys and girls are training 5 days a week, right?
Oh, yeah.
And even
if they don't go to practice, and if they're late, their shit's hitting the fan.
Right.
So
and they're still paying dues down there.
They're still paying dues. So, and now you talk about creating opportunities. Why can't we do it here at this level, right? That are going to allow you to be better off. So when that opportunity does come, that you've been fighting to get noticed, and now you're not prepared. Geez, maybe I should have went to practice.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, I've done ring crew with Chaotic once or twice, not a whole lot, and it's the students, and those kids. I've watched some of that kid JC Cruz. I think that's his name. I've watched him carry ring posts by himself up flights of stairs, and those things are heavy.
Yeah.
I've watched him pick up 5 or 6 boards at a time, and those things are 16, 18 feet long.
I mean, I'll share a story with you. I mean, the guys and girls that are training at the NXT, when they go to do their shows, they're doing all the setups.
Is that right?
All of them.
Okay.
All the stars are doing the setups, right? And from hanging curtains to putting down, tightening ropes, you name it, they're all doing it.
So they're not too big to do that?
No.
Really? Are you sure?
I'm absolutely 100% sure.
Never get too big.
I'm being sarcastic for a reason. You understand, I'm sure.
But think about it, right? So, to them, that old school mentality, is staying grounded is so important.
I had the opportunity to do ring crew for Chikara a couple of times when they had Cesaro down there, and they had Brian Danielson, and that was a paid ring rental. And those guys all picked up pieces.
Yeah.
And they were at the time, Brian Danielson was doing Ring of Honor, was at the top of it.
Yeah.
Same thing with Cesaro.
Yeah.
Same thing with Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Kevin Steen.
Brock. And all of those guys.
You look at it I'd see if I'm that guy, the top guy somewhere else, and I'm come here, I want to get that ring built quicker so I can roll around in it.
You want to get in there, you want to
warm up
because it's especially ring. For those guys, that was a ring they weren't used to. They didn't know the.
So
it's like back in the day when we played basketball. We'd have to go to another court. We'd walk around the whole court.
Yeah.
You want to feel the soft spots.
Yeah.
Things like that.
The only court with soft spots was the Don Bosco court.
Yeah, that had bubbles.
Don Bosco was the way we both went to high school, and it was. The basketball court was in the basement, which was built over the MBTA, so it was literally a rubber floor.
It's the building
they were trying to bounce the basketball off of, and there was literally soft spots in the middle of the basketball court. So you dribble the ball, it just wouldn't move.
But we never told the other team.
No.
Push them to the
that
corner.
ugly green floor,
the rubber floor. Yeah. Don't have a slide on that floor.
But it's the same thing in the rings. The rings have different. There's.
And it could be the same ring you've been in every time, but this one was tightened a little too much. This was tightened enough, and you want to hit all 4 ropes, all 4 corners.
Exactly.
How do you feel about now the art of mixed martial arts crossing into pro wrestling, like the Ronda Rouseys? Do you think if you're going to do submission holds, do you think mixed martial arts is a good thing to either know or at least watch and be familiar with?
I think from a business and from a marketing standpoint, with someone like her, I think it garners great interest, and I think the thing that's fascinating is her being able to transition into something like that and having a go of it and making it work, like a Shamrock or that says
Severn.
a lot. That really says a lot. Severn. That says really a lot about them, that where they understand that they're in a different environment. Know how to.
And Severn was doing them both at the same time because he was going down to the ring with the NWA belt.
Yeah.
And it's funny to see, the way I see it, watching MMA, any promotion of MMA, the people who I feel the people who are I'm going to punch you and kick you type of MMA, they won't make it in wrestling. But if you're the shoot fighter, you're on the ground. It's easy to transition right over.
I mean, that's what made Kurt Angle so special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was able to, think about it. Just tremendous transition.
Yeah.
That, and
away.
He was okay with being a goofball.
That, and he did it with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Fascinating.
yeah. Oh man,
Think about it.
won the gold medal, as he would say, with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah, special.
There was a video of him. I think it was this Christmas, and he was like putting the star on his tree, and his wife's yelling at him because he's got the medals around his neck. Why you wear those? I won these with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. And then that he transitioned so seamlessly into it, and
Well, I think the other part that speaks volumes about with whether it's a Rondi or it's a Kurt Angle, or the other kid that's coming in now, is their ability to be coached, right?
Yes.
And being open and not being this, but really being open-minded to with what that environment's going to be from where they were at, and how to change gears, and how to look at it from it's a business opportunity to generate a lot of money, to become a mainstream name. And
to tell a story,
and to be able to tell a fascinating story with where that might touch so many different people, opposed to just being that one-dimensional. So, and I think the other piece of it that's important is WWE is the machine itself is able to capitalize on that stuff and really create stars.
yeah. Yes, and
That's
lasting stars after their time in the ring, they're still talked about.
Yeah.
Like Stone Cold will be talked about forever
Oh.
in wrestling. Undertaker forever in wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching and being able to be coached or not be coached, because I was watching. I watch a lot of old stuff, and I was watching. It was one of the Tough Enoughs, I think, with Daniel Puder. There was the $1 Million one with the Miz, and Daniel Puder just ran his mouth. And Kurt Angle was in the ring, and Kurt Angle said, "You think you can beat me?"
Yeah.
Puder said, "Yes." Puder pinned him,
Yeah.
like a legit wrestling pin, not a 1, 2, 3 pin.
Mm-hmm.
And the ref counted 1, 2, 3 on Puder because obviously Kurt couldn't lose. And Puder doesn't have a job. Puder probably would have had a job at the end of that if he
understood.
knew how to shut his mouth and pay attention. You know what I mean?
I don't want to. It's less of this and more of this is vital to one's success.
Yeah.
You use the mouth afterwards.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't like that. You did that. Can we not do that again?
Yeah. It's like know your audience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're in the ring with Kurt Angle, one of the best, who was at the top at that point.
Yeah.
And
Just
you
listen.
Yeah. And I'm sure Angle would have walked him through something that would have made them both look good.
Yeah. I mean, all of those guys want to help, but if you want to be the type that's I want to.
Yeah.
And that was never our approach. What would you like to do tonight, sir?
Yeah.
What would work for you?
I think Angle ended it saying, "Get out of my ring."
Yeah.
Something not so nice.
Yes.
But that's so. But yeah, you said it right. Eyes open, ears open, mouth shut.
Yeah.
Well, it's better to be the chicken on the side than the cock of the walk.
Well, you think about it too, is that you're going into their house, right? Or if you're going into at a promotion's house, we're guests.
Well, and if there's TV, you got to go in ready to accept their story.
Well, Dr. Tom said it best, when he was doing his seminars for us at Chaotic. We would send people to TV, and there's more eyes on you in the back than there are when you're out in the ring, because you're hanging around for 8 hours. The different people, you never know who's watching how you interact and how you behave and how you carry yourself. So there's more to just learning how to work, and there's the business side. You're going to be in that professional environment. Do you have a suit and tie on? Are you dressed accordingly? Do you know who not to go up to when they're in the middle of a conversation, or who to put your arm around or in the middle of something? It's all of those little things.
And that was something that I heard Jamie say in a podcast from Jamie Kowski, who's doing Chaotic Wrestling, was that he always told his guys when they were going, if they were going to TV, you brought suit pants, a jacket, and then you bought gear, ref gear, and there was a few other things he had listed in there that you had. So that way, whatever they needed, you were ready, and you were dressed professionally.
The story of Jamie and I, we were trying to do our thing with the developmental piece. We'd go to the Fleet Center or wherever we needed to be. We'd be in suit and tie, and we might have to. There are times that we waited 8 hours for a 10-minute meeting. Just think about that, right? To be able to sit down in front of and talk to the powers to be for 10 minutes and waiting from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to whenever it might be. But again, just understanding with what that meant.
It's part
But the
of test.
relationship that you guys were able to get because you weren't afraid to ask for it.
Yeah, I mean, and,
You know.
the big thing is, well, geez, how did you do it? Well, we picked up the phone.
Right.
And they said, sure, come to Stamford and come talk to us. And I remember the first time we went there was myself, Jamie, and Ben Lentini. And, on the way down, we were talking about, who was going to say what piece and how we were going to present
And
it.
nothing went.
And,
No.
it works.
Now, Hollow Stable,
Mm-hmm.
because you are one of the best trainers in the world, hands down. Like
I'm not-
I don't think it's arguable.
No, I think that for me, it's just there's a lot of great trainers throughout the
Oh,
country. right? So
absolutely.
I'll say that. I think
But-
that just for me, it's just
I've always said if you're going to train, depending on what you want to do,
yeah,
you come here, you go to Booker,
yeah,
you go to, if you're in the West Coast, you can go see Sin over in Vegas, and that's a little bit of again a different style.
yeah,
But
But if you're
here,
smart, you go to all of them.
yeah.
yeah.
But here, like if you can see Mike Hollow, you
Yeah.
see Mike Hollow because you look at his track record.
Yeah, I think for me it's this. Ultimately, is you want to put a student in the best possible position to succeed, and knowing what that looks like and with what that takes, and being able to build that foundation, and being able to put different pieces of it together as they go along in their journey. It's a responsibility that I have is to be able to put them in that position. And there's a lot on them with where are they willing to take constructive criticism and being coached and and persevere. But again, as a trainer, me wanting to get into the weeds and focusing on the little things that are really going to allow them to get noticed for the things that are important. So when you do have the chance to go to the PC, or someone's going to look at your work that's going to be able to, that's a decision maker, they'll say, geez, there's something there. I'm not sure what, but there's something there that we can work with because they've got this, which is solid, and will allow them to go here.
Now, say you don't have the opportunity of living, in the Southwest or in the,
Florida.
in the
New England.
Northeast or in Florida, but you find a wrestling school, and you go in, because anyone can open a wrestling school. Not anyone can train. What questions do they ask? Without being offensive, obviously, you don't want to offend the trainer, but
Yeah.
at the same point,
And you really hit the nail on the head because anyone can buy a pair of boots and can buy a pair of trunks and anyone can buy a ring and
Amazon.
any of that stuff, right? So from a business standpoint, do your research, right? Find out who's teaching, what they're about, what their track record is like, and sit and watch. Right, and watch to see what's going on from a curriculum standpoint or from a class standpoint. Is it structured? Is it 2 hours of good solid work with where there are good things that are going on. There's good conversation back and forth between the trainer and the student. It's not beat down. It's educational. It's productive. There's constructive takeaways. Seeing with what the students are doing outside the ring when they're not participating. Is anyone, are they writing stuff down?
Are they watching?
All of those things. With
are they making sure the students have their notebooks?
Yeah, all of those things. With where if you're going to invest $2,000, $1,500, whatever it may be, is that you can say to yourself that I'm gonna get something out of this.
Got my notebook.
There you go. Excellent.
But
you know what I'm saying? Because let's face it, there are schools throughout the country that just want to take students' money.
Yeah.
Set up for 6 months,
Yeah.
take some money, and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I find and for me and for the guys that really the girls that want to do that right, it's like having a bad promoter
Right.
that burns a town.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And there needs to be more good trainers. There needs to be the likes of a Johnny Vegas or a Sonny Goodspeed or a Scott Reed. I mean, guys that ultimately
Sonny is so-
want to do it right. Because if not, it's wrong. It's wrong.
That's
And that and if you're in the business to take someone's money, that's even worse.
yeah. But unfortunately, that exists,
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
on the promoter end. That's on the student. That's on the school end.
Yeah,
That's in almost
It-
any sports entertainment.
it is.
business,
Yeah,
whether it's you're setting up a baseball league or,
and I've said to people, right, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, just Google my name. That's
Right.
it, right? And, and yay or nay.
I found you on OnlyFans.
What's that?
I found you on OnlyFans.
What is? I don't even know what that is.
It's
independent adult
entertainment.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah, way to kill that conversation.
yeah.
But no, but
Well-
like you Google you, and the first picture that shows up is you and Walter, you and Killer
Yeah.
Kowalski. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you that I didn't ask you last. That I asked everybody that's come out of there. You ever let him put the claw on?
Yeah.
How bad did it hurt?
Oh, it was bad.
Most people, like Bo, cringes
Yeah.
if you talk about the
You know,
claw,
the-
which seems ridiculous. But when you look at his hands, like I have a big hand, and it looks like Kowalski's
Yeah.
hands are like 5 times the size of mine.
I remember the first time I shook Walter's hand. It was like, and it just,
It's like he's shaking a little
But
kid's
they,
hand.
just massive.
they really say that claw killed.
Yeah. Incredibly,
And-
incredibly strong.
That's one of the most protective holds
Yeah.
around this area. Right? You don't see that really done anywhere
No.
now, but like that's so coveted here.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because you don't see that anymore.
Nope.
I mean, you see 3 different people in WWE doing a stunner.
Right. You look
Yeah.
at what they did to the super kick.
Yeah.
That was a sacred move. And so, because I had suggested, Bo was teaming up with DC Dillinger at one time, and I forget the name of the team. It was like Killer's Boys or something along that lines of like it was paying lineage to Killer Kowalski.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't you guys do the Killer device where one of you gets them up, and like so it would play off of the Doomsday device, but instead of hitting the clothesline with them up, you hit the claw with them up and drive them down. And they never get the chance to do it because the tag team was short-lived, but. I think that would have been a cool move. And what a name, the
Yeah.
Killer device.
Yeah. I can't say enough. Talking about Walter. I mean, if you think about it, and I'm driving here today in hindsight and thinking about from 1992, and here it is 2022, right? So if it wasn't for him back in 1994, giving me the opportunity, to do with what and I didn't know anything about training in 1994. I can tell you that I made 100 mistakes with where, I'll never do that again. But in the big picture of him giving me that opportunity, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here today having a conversation with you guys. I mean,
Well, and
that itself is fascinating. With where, that's a long time,
Yes.
right? And
It wasn't that long. I mean, I graduated high school in '92, so that was like 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
But even with that, though, no matter what level you're on, mistakes happen. You just
Right.
need to know how to carry on after.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'll share with you from a teaching standpoint that I thought was the norm, and that really learned from understanding personalities and people's and behaviors is that Walter was old school, right? He didn't mean anything by it, but he was very gruff, right? So he was loud and over the top, and so I said, well, geez, that must be the way. And as you get older and you're learning how your students each student is uniquely different, right? And being able to, some guys you can put your arm around, some guys you need to kick in the ass, so forth and so on. And they all have their different learning styles. So, good trainers understand that how you're going to get the most out of your students instead of, I'm going to hit you over the head and go from there.
Yeah.
You can have 2 students standing together next to each other, and you can go up and yell at one, but you can talk softly to the other.
You had a reputation as a tough teacher.
I was.
And
And
then I meet you, and you're like this down to earth, very nice, humble as anything.
Yeah. Well, when you say tough, in like what respect, with where?
Well, I think you were calling it honest, but
Yeah, I was honest.
you would call the shits for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and whether it was Walter or Pat or Freddie or Louie, I would be doing a complete disservice if I said to someone that was wonderful.
Yeah.
But it was the drizzle and shits, right? And now we want to build off of that, right? It's not good for you. It's not good for me. It's not good for the product. It's not good for the business.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
and that's my gripe today is that there is not enough honesty with where that's going to allow, if you think about it, that's what's going to create growth.
And I think people need to learn to take that honesty as honesty and not as an insult. Because if you're in, if you're in a locker room and you're on the show, you're wrestling, and there's a vet in the locker room, you should be asking that vet, hey, can you watch my match? Give me some notes after.
Right.
And you shouldn't expect a high five, and it was, like you said, it's a 5-star match.
Yeah.
You should expect it was good, but.
Yeah.
And take those butts and fix them.
Exactly.
Because that's not the person crapping on you. That's that person taking time out of the day to tell you how to be better.
I mean, let's be honest. If you think that I was, if they thought that I was tough and over the top, and you get to the level with where now you're walking to the curtain and Vince is waiting for you on the other side, right? I mean, and he can give an ass chewing. What are you doing?
Right.
And let's be completely honest. I mean, and then take professional wrestling out of it altogether. Everyday business life.
That's
right. I mean, listen, we all need to be coached in a way with where how are we starting here and getting here?
Right.
There are some pieces that with where we got to fill those gaps. So from an in-ring standpoint, when I look at things from a talent standpoint, how are they putting things together and how are they progressing and growing over 3, 6, 9 months, and are they putting it all together, and are they taking with what's giving to them from the trainers and making it work to get ahead in their career? That's with what we're looking for. And if you don't want that, then don't be in our business. And if you don't want to be coached, go sit on the couch.
Yeah, and that's I've had people.
That's right.
Right.
I've had people ask me for advice, and don't ask me.
I tell you my opinion. That's about it.
Right.
And I've had people tell me to go shit in a hat, and I'm cool with that. That's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's fine, right?
It's an old school saying. I haven't heard that in many years.
Yeah, and because for me, it's not personal, right? And I mean, it's not with where I have a grudge against anyone,
right?
But for me, from a teaching standpoint, I want nothing but the best for the business. But I also want the best for the student. But I also want them to meet me halfway with where they have a stake in the game just as much as I do.
Right. And they do. Their stake in the game should be more than yours.
Absolutely. Right? Because as passionate as I am about it, I want them to say the same thing. And now when I stop talking to you, you better scratch your head and say, geez, why isn't he saying anything to me right now? Because you weren't applying with where we were trying to help you.
Right.
I was throwing you lifeline after
and
lifeline.
You didn't have your notebook out.
And whatever it may be.
Yep.
Yeah.
You didn't have your notebook out taking those notes. That's it.
Tommaso did it for a year.
Not that.
That's great. Yeah, without training. Without getting in the ring.
What's that say?
You weren't watching the other guy.
Right.
It's not your turn. You sit there and watch.
Yeah.
And
pet peeve, I'm watching, I'm in the ring teaching, I got chatter in the background. I'd stop and look and say, do you want to teach the class? Or do you want to pay attention to what we're trying to put across right now? Because I'm going to ask you to do it.
Now, this is a question I don't know the answer to. A lot of these questions I have because I've either asked you before or I just knew.
When did you ask him before?
Last week.
Oh, that was a Mulligan. But go ahead.
Have you had any of the guys that you trained off of TV ever call you and say, hey, what did you think of my match last night or last week or whatever?
No.
You think it's just because of the agents there? Because the agents there are going to say the same, probably the same thing you would say.
And it would be great if they did, but they're at a level with where that all of that pertinent information's right there. I mean, it would be great, but no.
Okay.
No.
I figured the answer would have been yes, knowing who some of them are, just because they're.
I mean, I've written to guys.
They always want to evolve.
Yeah, and I've written to guys with versus geez, I thought that was a good match. Maybe would have changed this, and there might be a little quick thing back and forth, but not with where call me on the phone.
Okay.
No.
But they've reached out.
Oh,
yeah. See, that's
you're still part of the character development.
Yeah, I think I think for me is that when you reach out to them and and ask them to do different things for you, 20 years later and they're
still jumping,
they're there instantaneously. I mean, that says
they know what you did for them.
Well, they're appreciative of that, and I think their respect for the business and with what they've learned from being in that environment and being around has been stuck with them.
I wasn't. I liked Tommaso as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a fan of his wrestling when he was on the independents, and I didn't know why. I couldn't tell you why. I love what he's doing now. I think he's at the top of his game. I think he's 1,000 times better. And I realize it's because when he was on the independents, he was that much of a heel that I didn't like him. Like, I forgot.
His personality resonated with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I absolutely forgot, and I just thought I didn't like his wrestling. His wrestling is great.
And you know, the interesting story about that, when you know, talking about Tommaso, is that you know, they hired him, and then Johnny Ace let him go and said, hey, go find yourself overseas, find out your character, find out about your work, you know, hone your craft,
Fix his penmanship.
And it just doesn't mean because they say no, they let you go, doesn't mean take your ball and go home.
Listen to what they said.
Right? I mean, go, and now he's in an environment. Now he's going to go to the next level. So what I'm really interested to kind of see with where he goes, how they position him, and I'm hoping that he doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
No, I don't think he will.
Capitalize on with what he was able to transcend down at NXT and make it work up
He's
here.
gonna have one of the strongest personalities. Depending on what they do, if they change his character.
So there's the piece, right? So you think about with what he started with NXT from the get-go, right? To with where when he finally walked up the ramp, with where he closed that door behind him, and where he's going to go into now is so important, you know, for business and his career, and hopefully, I hope that they do it right.
I think, and I mean, I don't think he would have done it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he didn't have the choice this time. But I don't think if he had the choice, he would do it unless he knew what was going to happen. You know what I mean? I have a feeling, because he's been so good. He's been at the top of NXT. You don't hold that title for long. You have that title and then you graduate out.
I hope there has to be some conversations that are going up of what you want me to come up. What am I going to do?
Yeah,
am
I going to be me or you changing?
Well, I think he has. My perception is that he has a very good working, dynamic relationship with Hunter. I think that and you know, there's the piece. You know, you get two Kowalski guys.
Yeah.
Right. So you think that will never go away. So there's something special there, and Vince understands that lineage as well. And some people say, "Oh, that doesn't mean anything." Me, I think that does, and I think you know, that plays a part of it.
But I think it's interesting. Stephanie McMahon just took a new job outside of WWE. I think we might have talked about this. There's professional video games now, like where people actually get paid like huge money to play video games, whether it's streaming or it's tournaments. And one of the biggest teams is called the FaZe Clan, and they just hired Stephanie McMahon to be their chief. I think their COO, or maybe their chief, maybe the CFO.
Just like Shane when he went to Japan.
Yeah, but that's like that's crazy to me. And you know
how to run a business, how to run a business.
Yeah.
And that's the FaZe Clan is just a bunch of kids. They're all in their 20s. Like the kid who started it's from like Worcester or somewhere around here. But they have this huge mansion in the West Coast now where they all live and they make content. And
you think about it, like someone like Stephanie compared to someone like you and I, or all three of us. We grew up watching it. She grew up living it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the difference.
You know, she can do it. She was honed from a very young age to know what to do.
Yeah. Come from our father's cloth.
Yes. Now, Mike.
Yes.
Where can people find you on social media? I know Hollow Stable.
Find me on Facebook, Twitter, mhollow3.
Now, do you want them to find you, or do you want them to find Hollow Stable?
They can find Hollow Stables at hollowstables.net. Eric Darnell. Is that
Yes, Eric Darnell Anderson, man.
He found me through Facebook. There's my Hollow Stable page on Facebook. And then there's my personal page.
Eric is somebody who I look up to. Not literally, but quite figuratively, somebody who I admire as a person. And he was a great pro wrestler when he was pro wrestling. He had probably the second most coveted hold with the sugar hold that he used here. That people, like if you heard someone talk about the sugar hold, and it was, Eric can really stretch you out in that if he wants to. And
I was trying to remember when I came across him as a student. I couldn't put my finger on the ear. I don't remember.
He would have started around the same time as you, I think, because he was. I mean, he always hung around with Matt and Kyle and those guys, and they all started right in that mid-'90s range. But they were down in Rhode Island where he started up here and linked up with them. But Eric, he did the sugar hold, which now the only person I've seen do it since him is Thomas Santelli. Antonio Thomas does it now, is the sugar-free hold because he's a...
Diet.
Yeah. So, but for Eric to go out and say that, you know, some of the best lessons he got were from you in his time in wrestling.
Yeah.
That's coming from the son of a preacher man.
Yeah,
Preach on, Eric.
You know, like I said, I just happened to stumble upon that, and I reached out to him and said thank you. And you know, there's just one of those guys with where, you know, hey, you know, you make an impact, you try to put people in a good place, and you know, obviously he appreciated. There was nothing personal from trying to get the best out of students, so I was thankful for that.
Yeah, no, and Eric is another guy who would be super honest with everybody too. So, and he was known for his locker room speeches.
Oh, was he?
So there was a show here that someone tried to run that wasn't very successful. There was like a 3-day show. Eric was known for his speeches, and he flew Eric in to do the locker room speech really on this. And Colt Cabana was on the show.
Oh, really?
And Colt recorded this once Eric started talking and put it out there, because he's like that. It was like that.
You know, Texas high school football coach.
More like the Paul Heyman before the first pay-per-view. Yeah. This is the show. It was more like along that lines, but he did a different one for every single show.
Crazy.
And always pump the locker room up
like it's the big show,
and get the guys going, get the guys pumped up.
Yep.
And that's important, you know, because that's
big piece.
Yeah, if you go out there and you're just gonna phone it home, no, not after one of Ebony Blade's locker room speeches.
Yep.
That's now. I think we're at just about an hour. I know we went a little over.
We're at 7:30 now.
We're at an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we can do an extra credit show. Extra, I don't know.
My battery's dying.
I'm tired. All right.
But Mike, thank you so much, and again for the second week in the Mulligan.
No, it was great. You know, thank you for allowing me to come on and, you know, talk about the story from where it started in the early '90s to where we're at now. And if guys and girls are looking for me, hollowstables.net is my website.
If enough people hit you up, the Hollow Stable will open back up.
Yeah, anything. You know, I'll also say this: in wrestling, anything is possible. And as I said to you last week, my teaching days are far from over.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I still want to continue to do from a teaching standpoint and giving back. Hopefully, we find some other gems here in the New England area that we can create opportunities for. You know, that's the big piece. And like we were talking about earlier, just not to drag it on, but it's just students should be wise enough to go out and try to find different voices to hear different things. And it's no knock on other trainers at other locations or other schools. I think they're all trying to do the right thing.
This is coming from a trainer that runs a school. Like, so
I would encourage it. I mean, we never had a problem with where, you know, go learn. That's the piece. Go learn.
I know a lot of the schools work together anyway. Where if you go on a one, you can.
You try, right? I mean, it's just why be competitive, right? You're shortchanging the growth of individuals that are trying to climb that way. Whether it's in-ring lessons or it might be life lessons with where we can put someone on the right path with where they might be stumbling a little bit and help them in that standpoint. You know, that's the other piece as well. It's just not about professional wrestling. And as I've always said, not everyone's going to go on to the show, but everyone's going to go out to society. Right?
Yes.
And if we can create a difference in society, then
that's a win.
That is the different piece of what creates unique people. And I'll leave it at that.
But thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Jeez, he thought I was a heel. He said I was tough.
That's, you know.
As my kids, Dad, you're not at wrestling school. Stop. Stop the shit.
Well, you know who I know, so you can guess on who told me.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what people say about me. I'll be honest with both of you guys. There are people that fucking. Well, off the record, there are people that fucking hated me, right? And then there are people that adored me. So somewhere in the middle, right? And for the people that didn't like me, I get it. right? Because maybe I rubbed them the wrong way. But it was never personal.
Wrestling is a lot of alphas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you get two alphas in the same room,
Yeah, and
they're gonna bark.
And I'll share this with you. And when I walk into a wrestling school, it's not my call at home,
right?
And not that there's anything special about me when I walk into a wrestling school, but it's the different. It's the
But
different
that's your
person.
work, and
It's
you
my work.
take.
Yeah,
Different hat.
Yeah, I'm at home. I'm dad, right? And I've always told the students when I walk in the door at this school, whether it was next gen or chaotic, it's not my right to be here. It's not. It's not my right. It's my privilege to be here. As corny as that may sound, right?
Yep.
But someone came before me.
Yeah.
Right, that it's allowing me to do
Somebody
it.
passed that torch.
Someone passed that torch. And if you think for one effing minute that I'm going to let the business get shit on because some guy thinks he's bigger than this, that ain't fucking happening.
Yep.
Right? And that's the truth, right?
That's it.
That's it. So.
That.
But who told you that I was tough as nails?
I forget.
I forget. Good. Hey, but guys, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll let you know when I turn the key back on, and